Everyone. This is our Facebook Live Wednesday afternoons. We've been doing this for about a month and a half now. And what we try to do is have folks who are influencers here in Sacramento join us for a half an hour discussion about what they're doing and what we should be doing. I usually start off with a little brief about last night's council meeting, but council is on recess right now. We've got a 2-week break from meetings, although I think everybody's working pretty hard. But I'm here today with Amanda Blackwood, who's the CEO of the Metro Chamber of Commerce, and also Cathy Rodriguez, who's, I believe CEO is the right title, of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And tonight we really want to talk about what's going on in the economy, what's going on in the economy of Sacramento, how we're responding to COVID-19. Both of these women have really important roles in helping us think through how we spend our stimulus money, what we should be doing, and how to protect business, not only in the short run, I think, but in the long run. If people have comments, they can always send them in to us, and we'll do our best to try to answer them along the way. What we try to do also is start with a little bit of a bio so we know who we are and how we got here. And Cathy, I'm going to start with you if you can, and give us a little 3-minute bio of your entire lifetime. But importantly, what you're doing and why you do what you do. I think that knowing each other's stories is the first thing that we should be doing when we try to get to collaboration.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Well, thanks for having me on today, Jay. I'm happy to be here with Amanda. She's a great colleague and friend, so this is a nice surprise to do this with her. So my short bio, I'm not going to start from like the day I was born, but I am from a small but I am from a small town, St. Helena. It's in Napa Valley. And where I'm from is a lot of what made me me. And I grew up in a small town that from kindergarten through high school, I went to school with the majority of the same people. And so we really knew each other's families. I grew up especially in St. Helena, especially during that time, is very community oriented and focused. And so I learned early on the power of working together, of supporting each other, of making sure that everyone was included. And the reality is I didn't even know that until years later when we start using words like inclusion and diversity and equity and how important it is. And it was built into me my entire life. So I grew up in St. Helena. I graduated with our class size was about 100 people there. And from there, I went to UC Davis. And that was my first big array into a bigger city. And I remember the most exciting thing was that things were open past 10 o'clock because things closed down. So I went to UC Davis. I majored in communications. I minored in English. And I also worked there for a short time doing admissions and outreach at the School of Medicine. And yesterday's announcement about Dr. Drake becoming the new president of the UC system was great for me to hear because I remember him from my recruitment days, and he was inspiring and magnetic and smart. And so I'm happy to see him coming into this role. So the UC system has been a big part of me, and I actually sit on the alumni board for UC Davis right now. From there, I went over to Sacramento Bee, and I had a tenure of 10 years there, community relations and public affairs. So it's one of the reasons I actually know a lot about the nonprofits and organizations and people and places here. So it was a really good study and opportunity to really get to connect and build that network and really understand Power Sacramento. And even then knowing that we are a place of all possibilities, that people are willing to come in, collaborate, connect, and make things happen. And that's what I loved about that time there. I had a short stint doing my own business. So when I talk to business owners, I often use my own experience, a lot of which is you really should have a business plan. I probably would have served me better to have a business plan. So although I was really good at the events and marketing and proud of the work that I did, there is a benefit in going to your local chamber and joining it and learning all the technical assistance and the needs from there. This role happened because my predecessor, Alice Perez, she is someone who I admired and respected and always thought if I have an opportunity to work with her, I'm just going to say yes, which is a lot of how everything happened for me. I'd meet people and think that's someone I can learn from, that's someone that I should get to know. And here I came. Alice was, had taken a short time to be here at the chamber and helped reignite it and restructure formats of it. And she is amazing in everything she does. And I want to say that of all the mentors I've had, she was the first that when this opportunity came up said, you need to just go for it. You need to, what are you waiting for? And didn't have a list of like, here are things you should do to make yourself more competitive. Here's what you should do, you know, that you might be lacking. Nothing like that. She was like, you're ready, just go. And and for those people that know Alice Perez, you take her advice. And I did, and I jumped in, and I've been CEO now coming up on 6 years. And every day is different. I love that I get to still serve the community in a different capacity. I love that I can help amplify voices that need that additional help. I love getting to know these businesses, which for me are about families. Everyone is just working hard to support their families, to build their families, to give their families other opportunities that maybe they didn't have. And for that girl who left home at 17 to go to UC Davis, I would never have thought that I'd get to be in this position where I could use my skill set really just to be of service to others. And especially within the Latino community, it's a role I take seriously and hold true to the responsibility that it gives me. And that's, you know, how I got here. And so that's
Great.
my story.
Okay. So we had a couple of questions about what we're doing here. I'm going to ask Amanda to do her self-bio here, and then we'll talk again about why we're doing this. Okay, Amanda?
You got it. Well, thank you, Jay, and thank you, Cathy. It's hard to follow Cathy, man. I love these numbers. And everything she said is absolutely true. It's an honor and privilege to work with her all of the time. So little story about me. I did not grow up that dissimilarly. Small town, Kansas, Midwest, right? And grew up in a town of 30,000 people. So, you know, up to that time, you know, particularly as a woman, you look around, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but your options were fairly limited. And I could be a nurse or a teacher or a mom or a hairdresser or, you know, and noble callings by all means, but that was kind of our world. And in my senior year of high school, my dad had an opportunity to move out to California, take a job. They asked me, do you want to finish here or do you want to come out to California? I'm like, deuces on Kansas, I'm coming out to California. And then we moved to Vacaville, which was ostensibly Kansas, just in California. There were plenty of cows. It was very familiar to me, you know, agricultural farming community, and then eventually Sacramento. So I definitely know that shaped me and how I see the world in the place that I come from, that, you know, there is so much more that connects us than divides us. And having grown up in a Midwest environment, having come out, you know, to a California environment, having family in between, you know, I know that there is that shared sense of community, that shared sense of family. I mean, that's America. That's who we are. So it's great to be here and have other opportunities available. And I met my husband when I first got out here. So we've been together almost 20 years. It will be 20 years in 6 days. And he's a born and raised Sacramentan, South Sacramentan, and is a middle school teacher in South Sac. So we really kind of got involved in community, and you know, we're hyper aware of the opportunities available to kids. And I think me coming from a small town, seeing the big world, you know, him being a born and raised Sacramentan, and knowing while we have all these amazing things, and we've got the Kings, and we've got MLS, and we've got downtown, and we've got all this, and that's great. There are still very much folks in our community that are not sharing in that experience. And that's not what community is about. It's not about having some for some and, you know, not access for others. So that's really, I think, what drives us. I was able to join a team in an association. I've worked, right, since I was 13 in Kansas. If you have a job, you can have your driver's license. So, you know, got a job at 13. My parents have always run small businesses, very entrepreneurial. We just figure it out. So coming out to California was, okay, you know, what am I going to do with all this opportunity? And it was very logical that, well, let's start a small business. So, you know, started that at 18, went through several iterations of that. I've had, I think, grown and scaled maybe five or six small businesses myself, and had the opportunity to work in association management, learn what that was, and then get exposed to advocacy and policy, and why associations, chambers, trade associations are so important, because the members, you're just doing what you're doing, right? You started your business because you make amazing chocolates, or you sew these bags, or you are a graphic designer, right? You don't know HR and compliance and what's, you know, we don't know what our city government does, what our county government does, what our state government does, you know, because you're busy running your life. So, you know, being a part of nonprofit association work at 19 was a great eye opener into, man, you really get to do this mission oriented work that makes a difference for people using your skill sets for good. And that was a huge motivation for me. Went into ultimately commercial real estate before the bubble, after the bubble, navigated a company through that. My background is in operation and finance. So I eventually became a CFO. So when you hear from me, it's always dollars and cents and numbers and data, because that's where I come from. And we scaled and grew that company. We sold it and then had the opportunity. I had 2 little girls and got an executive coach, you know, at one point during all this, because I was, 25, running a $30 million thing, trying to figure it out as best as I could. And she asked me, if you could do anything you wanted with your time, what would you do? And I said, I would just work with organizations that need to fix. It's operational, it's technical assistance, it's just get your HR house in order, get your policies in order, get your procedures in order. It's my favorite thing to do. God, I'd love to do that. And then when the real estate boom kind of crashed and you had no job, it was okay, now's the time to try that. So I started my own consultancy and worked with nonprofit small business extensively on scaling up and best practice and just knowing these are the salt of the earth folks that are providing for their families and providing jobs for our community that need the help the most. And when the opportunity at the chamber came up to say, hey, maybe what I'm doing for a few, I could do for the many, right? That was a no-brainer. And yes, absolutely, let's do that. So I want to thank our chamber leadership as well. You know, some of you may know Metro Chamber, 125-year-old organization. I am the first full-time woman to ever lead the organization. I think the youngest CEO that they've ever had. So thanks for taking a risk on me. You know, been here 2.5 years, and I think we have just done some incredible work. Being able to work with colleagues like Cathy, like Pat at the Asian Chamber, like Aziza at our Black Chamber, you know, we are in this together. We are sharing resources. We are collaborating like never before, and we're really creating great change. And to have the opportunity to work with partners at the city, like you, Jay, that take the time to listen, understand how important our small business community is, and is always a willing partner to say, let me hear you, let me see what I can get out of your way, let me see what I can help you out with. And it's really been in COVID, you know, a time like no other to say, whatever drama was there is no longer important, right? These are just priorities. We're in triage, we're in recovery, we're here for our communities. And it's a blessing, it's a pleasure to do this job every day. It's hard and it's long hours. And I know both my colleagues here share that. But there is no greater feeling than knowing that you have left this better than you found it. And that the energy that you put into the world, you know, made a ripple effect that is affecting thousands of businesses, 10,000s of businesses, hundreds of thousands of workers, and helping to guide us through very dynamic times. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
That's terrific. And we got a new tagline for Vacaville, the Kansas of California.
Gotta trademark that.
So again, we're here with the CEOs of the Metro Chamber, Amanda Blackwood, and the Hispanic Chamber, Cathy Rodriguez. This is our weekly Facebook Live, and we may go a little longer today. This is the first time we've had 2 people on. So if you guys have a little time, we'll do that. But it's really about bringing people who are important in Sacramento, who are influencers in Sacramento, and trying to look at today, what we're trying to look at is small businesses' response to COVID-19. It's been really, really hard. We know there's a lot of businesses who aren't going to survive. Cathy, maybe we could start with you and just think about the folks that you're serving in the Hispanic Chamber and what they're going through right now, and how we can best support them. And then Amanda will come to kind of the bigger picture from there.
Well, first of all, I want to say how much I appreciate Amanda. She is completely right. There's a pandemic has created a lot of challenges, but one of the things that has been a pleasant and great partnership is how so many of us have come together and really, centered on the fact that we are all here to help our small business community. And it doesn't matter, what background, what ethnicity, the size, of the small business, but we're all here to really provide the resources and tag team as needed. And so that is something that's very appreciated. And I want to acknowledge it here because it's probably one of the first times that, people will say, and I can say that, we have this really great partnership with the Metro Chamber that hasn't been there before. So with the pandemic has really brought some really positive change, as we look at things. For our small businesses,
mark all those silver linings as we go forward.
Right? Yeah. We need that because we have to hold on to something that, the good that's happened from here. For our small business community, especially in the Latino community, what we've seen, it mirrors everything, but I think especially in ours is that there's still this resiliency. Like I was, right before, we're always going to call that before and after, right? So before this pandemic hit, we had just done a business walk, a couple of Mac Road partnership. We done with them, and then Franklin Boulevard partnership. And as we were doing that, afterwards, people were like, wow, I can't believe that there's so many businesses that have been here for, 10, 15. We were actually meeting in one that had been 60 years in business. And, one of the things that I shared afterwards, well, isn't it amazing that you think about, here they've been here this length of time. They obviously have gone through a recession or two, other challenges, and they're still here. And as we think about the investments that we need to make in our city and how we can make it better and stronger and more vibrant by extending it outside the core, because we have this great core of activity and things that are there. But how wonderful it would be if we can emulate that and magnify the greatness that's happening in these other neighborhoods. And here's an example. If we had invested more in this area, this one in particular was Franklin Boulevard, where could we be? Because obviously these businesses know how to do something because they've stayed in business, right? They're still there. They're still serving. They're that anchor for so many, that first job for, the high school kid, the place where people go to celebrate, their anniversaries or have their first date or whatever it is that they might be. This is where they're going to. A pandemic hit. And I'll be honest, it's a whole change of scene. We saw people that we knew before the value of technical assistance. I think that it became, again, something people were like, wow, we really need that. And that became in technology. Those that had more access to technology, that were able to pivot a little bit more, go to online sales, that curbside delivery, a lot of it is restaurant based, but we have a lot of retail based too. They're like, what can we do? The hair salon that was like, we can't be open, but here we are, doing Instagram, telling you different tips that you can do because we want you to remember us, and having to find a different way of doing business. And those that knew it or maybe had younger generations in their household that could help them do it really, saw, hey, there's also some opportunity here that we didn't know about. And so incorporating that and working through it. Those that didn't, it's been harder. And, we have spent more time, how can we help you get there? How can we help you consult? So we're seeing is a lot of people that are changing their business model, that are a little more open to having to do that. But we're also seeing people that are really struggling, if you don't have that revenue coming in, it's really hard to pay your rent. As wonderful as, SMUD has been to all of us, right? All of us don't have to worry about our lights being turned off till at least January, but it's still there. Is what we tell our businesses, don't forget, it's getting deferred. There will still be a payment that will have to be made. So there's a lot of that. And then for us too is promoting that, the city is doing great, trying to be those partners for the small business. And I really commend the city. I'm really thinking about that. How do we help our small businesses recover first with a, $1 million program, and being open to, here's how, if you're able to do it again, what would make it better, and being open to those suggestions. And then bringing the second one around, for us, it's really to letting people know, no, this help is available. You just need to apply. And so I have, we have people in neighborhood associations that are meeting with businesses right now, taking their laptops to help them fill it out. And so for us, there is a little bit more grassroots and one-on-one that's going on. But yet, what I really think is interesting, as hard as it is, and, Amanda and I can both speak to, having had businesses before, I am inspired and amazed by the fact that there's no giving up. Even when I'm like, I'm not sure I'm gonna make this payment, they're still moving forward. And so, and I think that that is something that here in Sacramento, we should be proud of the businesses that have chosen to do their business and have their business here in Sacramento that are adding, to the economic vitality. We don't talk a lot about it, but these neighborhood and diverse communities are contributing. They have been contributing. And so the assistance they need is not any more than any other area. They just, need help, to keep going.
But maybe let's turn to Amanda. If I'm a small business, I know I'm suffering right now. I might be closed completely. I might be only doing some kind of curbside, whether it's retail or food. Maybe I'm open, but my customer base is not leaving their house. Where should I be looking? Give me a little advice here. Be the consultant, Amanda Blackwood here.
We put my very expensive advice I'm going to give you. Honestly, my gut answer is always going to be reach out to your chamber, reach out to Cathy, right? Reach out to Pat, reach out to Ziza, reach out to us. We at the Metro Chamber have a particular program. It's called the Small Business Development Center. It's funded through the SBA federally. It's absolutely free, right? So what I would encourage anybody to do is just pick up the phone, call the SBDC, tell them what challenges you are having. It could
be SBDC. No acronyms are allowed on this show.
Small Business Development Center, right? Call it. It's free. It's free. Right? You'll have somebody take an intake, and then they'll say, what challenges are you having? And it could be, I want to pivot online. I don't even know how to do that. It could be, I don't know if I have insurance, or I made a claim and my broker told me this isn't covered, but I don't know if it is. It could be, I'm sitting here looking at this PPP application. I don't even know where to start. I don't have payroll records, right? These are cash business. Wherever you're at, right? It is a judgment-free zone of just pick up the phone. It's free. They'll hear you out and then be able to surround you with a team of consultants. It may be referred right back to Cathy or one of her partners, or there are a stable of consultants that work for the Small Business Development Center with specialties, be it digital marketing, be it insurance, be it legal, be it HR. I don't know. I had an employee that said they had COVID. What do I do? Do I shut down? Do I close? Any of those questions that are just on your mind will get you to somebody who can walk you through it. You are not alone. You're not alone. And worst case, you just have somebody to hear you out that's going to say, yeah, that sounds well thought. Looks like you know what to do. And just having the affirmation that the next step makes sense is important. I'll share, City of Sacramento was a major supporter of helping us stand up a business hotline so that we could take phone calls, just a triage hotline. And a lot of those calls we were getting were these are folks in crisis, right? They're in mental crisis, that everything they've ever done has been wrapped up into this small business. It's how they support their family. It's every bit of asset they ever had. And they're wondering, do I mortgage my house? Do I take on debt? Do I not? To Cathy's point, thank you to all of our folks that have deferred expenses, but they didn't go away. So we're also doing a lot of counseling on, let's look at how resilient your business is in an environment in which you are not going to be open as usual. It is not. This online way, this virtual hybrid way is going to be with us for at least a couple of years. So let's just pragmatically say, if that's the case, how do I structure my operation to weather that? Do I need to think about selling? Do I need to think about what it is to take on additional debt? These are big choices, and you don't have to make them by yourself. At a minimum, just make a call to any of us, and you'll have someone talk you through. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And then it'll get you to that place. And I know, our folks are just struggling, real talk, with, we're in pandemic, right? And we're also facing the very real realities of the impacts of systemic racism on our community and the murder of our neighbors of color. And that's real. And the fear of illness and the, being separated from family. And you had a 4th of July that would have been an experience that you normally would have pool partied and barbecued, and you didn't. You stayed at home, and it's lonely, and we are humans processing grief. So, business hat on for sure, but human hat on first, that if you need someone to talk to process, take care of yourself, put the mask on yourself for literally and figuratively, put the mask on yourself first so that you can even start to make strategic decisions, because it's hard, and it's hard to navigate by yourself, and you don't have to.
That's great. Maybe let's turn a little bit and do a pivot on equity. The city's done two things really, or the same thing twice. The first time we put out $1 million for small business loans and grants. Our goal as a council and as a city was to get that money out as quickly as possible. This was kind of at the beginning of the pandemic. We did, I think, a pretty bad job in a lot of ways as far as equity. It was a first come, first serve. Most of it stayed downtown. Most of the folks who got loans looked more like me, right? We are coming back with $15 million worth of loans and grants, plus $5 million worth of technical assistance that you all will help provide. How are we doing on that? And Cathy, let's start with you, if we can. You know, is the city, have we done enough on the equity lens of where that money will go out and how that money will go out to make sure our urban corridors are taken care of, and certainly our communities? You talked about folks who've been there 60 years who probably have never suffered in this way. Recessions are one thing; they come slower, they may last longer, but it's not such a immediate binary. You're on and then you're off. So be critical, but how is the city doing that, and are we doing the right things?
Well, as I said before, so the initial program that came out in March, you're right. I think there was a lot of heavy critics of the way it was handled and rolled out and set. But I also want to say that we were all at the beginning, and we didn't know. I don't think any of us thought that we would be in July and still feeling this. I thought, a few weeks and we'll be out of this and we'll be moving forward in a different direction. So I do want to say that. So, it's easy for all of us to criticize, but, the city did have an intention of trying to get out funding in a quick manner. And that's why I want to, share that I appreciated it this time around. It really feels like it's more intentional. It's more thoughtful, that there were allowance for more voices to be heard about how to, process this loan program. And one of the big ones was to give a little more time. It's a 2-week period. It started last Monday and this Monday, July 13th at 5:00, and that there wasn't going to be a closing. That whatever applications came in, they were going to look at them all. So if it feels inundated, it might, but you were going to give an opportunity for everyone to actually fill out the application and put it in, and have a different review process. So I appreciated that. It's going to be hard to say until we see how it all, ends up, where the money goes and set. And my hope is that it'll, it'll hit more of the underinvested areas as needed. I think the fact that 75%, the goal of 75% of it is to hit those areas is helpful, 25% to micro businesses. I think there was more of our voices that got to be at the table to say, here's the things that when you're looking at it, here's the corridors, also the longevity of business. We love our new and shiny businesses and we want them to do well. And, but we also had some that had been around for a really long time that weren't able to receive any funding, from that initial one. So could there be a little bit of, another glance at them and help them out? So the webinars, I think this time, we were really big, and I appreciate Amanda so much for echoing. So always said having things in language as it gets rolled out and not waiting until after it got rolled out. It seems like a simple thing that wouldn't matter, but having people not get the information until a few days, after something rolls out, and that it puts people behind. And so to have something roll out at the same time in as many languages as possible, which, wasn't just Spanish. I know that there was other languages were included, Chinese, Hmong, some. I think that you had, a few other ones. And I think that's important. So I think that when we're looking at it, it really does feel like we're being listened to more, that we're trying to, work together, that, as a city, you're taking seriously the fact that, there is equity is important. And, we use that word a lot lately, and maybe more so that some people are like, what does that mean? The equity means, we need to invest in areas that need it a little bit more than other areas do. and that's what it means, right? And so it's hard for people to hear that, but I feel like as a city as a city council that you've taken that to heart and that you're working towards that. So, and I know that this is, again, I think this is the most authentic relationship that we've had, I think for, our chamber with other business associations, with, this city, to really feel like, yes, we're in together to do this work. And, ultimately when this is done, we'll see the results, and hopefully it mirrors, the work that went into making sure that it was equitable will show in the results.
Great. So I'm going to assume we're okay to go for about 15 more minutes for both of you. We have a lot to say, and what I want to do before we end too is, Amanda, if you want to give out a phone number or an email, if people want to talk to the SP Small Business Development Center, that would be great. And they can also call my office and we'll get that. Amanda, we had the council has extended the moratorium on evictions and paying rent. You have members, I'm sure, who are on both sides of that one. You have landlords who have to pay their bills and their mortgages, and you have people who are renting or leasing and just don't have the customer base to be able to pay their rent. How do you balance that?
Well, it's a great question, and you're right. And I think the vast majority of landlords. Well, let me say it like this: in Sacramento, you have an interesting blend because you've got folks that live, born, bred Sacramentans, develop projects, right? Find tenants, lease them out. They live here. It's their community. We also have a part of our investor community that's out of market, right? So these are purely investment properties. They don't really know the tenants that are in the space. They do deals. They look at ROI. It may be a property that's held in a fund, right? So there's really no connection to the people that are within the space. So I would be very comfortable saying that our local owners, managers, born and bred Sacramentans have, what I have seen is showed a very forthright effort to work with tenants to understand where they're coming from and to try to make that work. No commercial developer, no landlord, no property manager wants their building to be empty, right? Everyone is incentivized to have folks in it, even if you're not currently paying, right? It's better for you to be in it, activating, using the space, than it is for it to become an unused, blighted space. If you had a commercial environment in which people were just knocking down our doors for all of our retail and whatever, you'd have a supply and demand differential that may affect that. But in our market, our developers want you in your space, and then they want you to be successful, and they want you to stay. If you are experiencing that with an investment fund, you're probably having a different experience, right? And those folks are answering to shareholders. But with our local guys, I've seen a huge effort on trying to work with folks and put those in place. As a matter of fact, and I know we shared with council, many of our folks already had arrangements in place before the eviction moratorium ordinance took place, right? So they were very proactive on that. However, it's real. It's real that your people that own these buildings also have mortgages to pay. And until there's mortgage deferral, it doesn't stop. So something that we've advocated for strongly, and we do a call, Cathy's is on that call as well. We were every day. We went 3 days a week. Now we're to 2 days, but every 2 days a week, we meet with our congressional reps and we tell them, or be it Ami directly or Doris directly, and say, what are these big banks doing to create some relief? Because it wasn't that long ago that we bailed you out. So when I'm looking at the balance sheets of a Wells Fargo or a Bank of America or a Chase at a federal level, and you're still making incredible margin, we need to talk about what you're going to do for some mortgage deferral, because our local owners and managers are very much also small businesses. And while it may look like, wow, you own this big old building, you must be rolling in the dough, the margin on those is very low, and they've got debt and mortgage to pay too, right? So just like you can't front payroll for 4 months, they can't front mortgage, for 4 months. So it's real. So, my answer is there an easy answer? No. And what we ask is that at the federal level, we really ask for some leadership there in a variety of areas, but in this area particularly, to provide that relief so that folks have that space. We ask our commercial tenants, call your broker, call your landlord, engage in dialogue, right? The best thing we can do right now is just engage in dialogue, be empathetic to where folks are coming from, and try to come to a place of compromise. You just not paying rent and not communicating, or them just sending you notices and, lawyering up, that's not beneficial to anybody, right? Everybody wants to be able to move through this. So calm down, pick up the phone, have the conversation, see if you can come to terms. If you can't, right, call your chamber, right? Call one of us and see if there's something that we could do. But it's delicate and it's balanced, and, folks got debts all over the place that they're all trying to balance. But we would love to see some more leadership at the federal level on providing relief.
Yeah, I think two other things. One thing the city has done with some funds is we're starting a mediation center on this as well. So if we put some money into that out of our stimulus dollars. And if we can be helpful between landlords and tenants, that's something we want to do as well. I think there's one more cohort of businesses, Amanda, that you didn't mention, where in the same way you have folks who are the developers who are either local or not local, you have tenants who are local or not local.
Very true.
Our longtime Sacramento businesses that are, may have one shop or a few shops in town versus national chains. And we know some of the national chains are not paying their rent as well. And I think that's something that we need to look at, because the resources are a lot greater generally than some of the mom and pop places that we have here in Sacramento.
Right. Well, and I think it very much speaks to our sense of community, right? When you're in community, right? When you know the folks that walk up and down your street, when you know your police officers, when you know your teachers, when you know your neighbors, when you care about the outcome, and not to be crass, but if your business here is simply an investment, and I know because I was the CFO for a commercial developer who was looking at projects, that you're looking at it from a investment standpoint, not necessarily a people standpoint. And at this point, our community needs community, and you've got to support the people that are here. Or what are we doing? What are we fighting for?
So the message is shop local.
That's right. Hashtag.
Absolutely. So I have one last question for both of you. I know neither of you are shy, but if we change places here and I was running one of your chambers, and you were on the city council, what's the first thing you would do as a council member?
Is that an option? Can we do
I know, right?
You never know.
Okay, Cathy, you take it away. I want to know what you say.
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to give you a lot of credit, Jay, because as we watch you every week, what I often think is, wow, what a challenge, to have so many different voices at you all the time and not be able to actually respond to everyone. So in that sense, I think Amanda would agree. We have the better job because we listen a lot, but we do get to respond. All right. So not always at a 2-minute piece, but wow. So if I were, got the opportunity to be in your place, honestly, you're doing it, but I think that it's really adding and sharing that sense of community, really, taking that time to remind your constituents, everyone, that the reason I'm here is you. And the thing I would do would be, how am I of service to you? And, and am I doing what you called upon me to do, and holding myself accountable and allowing them to hold me accountable, for that too. And I think that is, and all of us in leadership, and I'm gonna put us all on that same page. It's the hardest thing, I share this, a lot with people, but, you become a leader, or you are a leader, and there's a lot of decisions and a lot of things that come your way, and you're trying to think of, do the best for the most which is hard because it's different than the best for all. We would love all, the best for most. And how do we do that? And how do we do that in a way that, is still thoughtful and caring, intentional. And, so I guess I'm saying, Jay, so I think you're doing a pretty good job in doing this role. And I think that I would emulate it as best as possible.
I'm going to come back to you because I'm going to push a little harder. You got
really
four other.
Go to Amanda.
I'm going to Amanda, but I'm going to come back. You got 4 other votes, so you got 5. You got a majority of the council. You can do something. You can move a policy. You can start a program, whatever you want to do. And what would you do? You got 4 other votes signing up behind you.
I got 4 other votes to do whatever I want to do, or not whatever, I guess, to do this whole piece of it. Let's see. If I got 4,
you want to think about it and let Amanda go first.
Go, Amanda. Well, I think about it.
I agree with everything Cathy said. Regard. What I would do, get this money out the door, get this loan program going, get this technical assistance done yesterday, right? I want to honor the city too and the staff, right, who are moving mountains and building the plane while they're flying it and doing stuff you never expected to do. However, the pace of pandemic is not always the pace of government. And I know we want to make good decisions, and I appreciate the speed in which we've acted. And when our businesses close their doors, they're done, right? There's no coming back. So 2 weeks matters, 3 weeks matters, 6 weeks matters. Let's get this program going, started. Let's create some impact people can feel. We need some wins in this community. So that is what I would do with my precious votes.
No, that's great. And before we go to Cathy, I do want to give props to Mike Jasso and his economic development people. They have worked their butts off. This is all new for us. You're right. We're flying the plane as we're building the plane as we're running down the runway. But understanding that there is an extreme urgency about this. So Cathy, you got the last word today. And then we're going to go back. I just need a phone number and if you want to do an email for the SBDC. Oh, I just lost Cathy. Oh, well.
Oh,
Amanda.
no. Oh, she didn't want to do it. Man, that was an option. We could have just logged off. My God. So numbers for everybody. If you want to call us, please call the Small Business Development Center at 916-319-4268. And we will get you hooked up with a counselor. Again, it's totally free, no barrier to entry. Please call. Also, we have assistance in English, Spanish, Mandarin, and Vietnamese. So please try to make that call. And you can always see us at metrochamber.org, and we will get you squared away with some help.
Great. Thank you, Amanda, so much. And Cathy, wherever you are in the ether, we appreciate your time today. It's been great. And stay safe, stay healthy, and let's get our economy going. Take good care.
Thank you.